Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all here today in this seminar for today. In fact, today I would be talking about topics of paramount importance, in fact, and be telling you why we are having these two topics together and what would be the matter of concern for us. But first of all, I'd like to introduce to you the keynote speakers of our session of today. We will start with Engineer Tariq Tawfiq, who is the a member in the board of our center. In fact, he is the deputy chairperson of it. Don't be offended. And he is the head of the American Chamber. In fact, it's a very long bio of him, and his titles are a lot. He's wearing so many hats. And he is the head of the poultry company, and in fact, it's like dozens of companies. He is the head of the Federation of Industries, and he is the head. In fact, he is everywhere. In fact, he's a man everywhere, so you can talk to him anywhere. So Tariq Tawfiq, in fact, he is the solution for anything. And also we have consultant Sham Ragab. He is as dangerous as the previous speaker. In fact, and in fact, he's member in the Supreme Committee for the Legislative Reform. He is also a consultant and advisor to the Ministry of Justice, and also he is a founding member of the International Forum for the Insolvency, and in fact, he is the one who had worked on that law here. So all the laws that are problematic, controversial in Egypt is because of this, or is relevant to this man. He is responsible for this. So also, we have engineer Hamdi Abdelaziz, and he is a member in the an ex member in the Consumer Protection Board, and he is the chairperson of what we call company, and he used to be also the head of the Chamber of Engineering in the golden time of this chamber. This chamber had a golden era when he was presiding over it, in fact. But okay, and he is a member of the Export Council for Engineering Industries, and also he has lots of experience in relation to automotive feeding in industries. Mr. Ahmed Eid, he is the youngest keynote speaker, fact, and he is now working in the Department of Content for promo media for advertisement. And now, in fact, since we are talking about consumer protection, you all see a catastrophic advertisement of Hala Fakhr in Rotana Cinema. Do you know this one? In fact, I do always I say curse words. In fact, when I see such a kind of advertisements. In fact, he is a journalist in Tahrir newspapers, and also he is also working with On TV channel, and he is a member in the Constituent Assembly, or what we call the Group of the 50, and in fact, he is a friend, and this is the most important thing, in fact. Also have Dr. Ahmed Fikri Abdel Wahab. He is hiding, in fact, amongst the participants, but he didn't want to be on the podium, but in fact, he is also a very important person here. And you are all important people, in fact. But just I'm telling you who is the one you can fight with if you want to be in a fight. Okay, before opening the floor for discussion in ECES, so we try to do something which is really with some international flavor or international dimension included. So, and this is before opening the floor for discussion. In fact, it is here. It's called the consumer protection, the local product, the text, the provisions of law, and the problems of enforcement. In fact, this is our strategic direction, and for anyone who is a newcomer, we want to achieve economic efficiency, but also we want to have social justice in order to achieve such green colored square, which is a robust economy, making benefit for our being enjoyed by everyone. So one alone is not enough because you can have so you can be poor with a poor economy. You can have poor economy but only benefiting for a small group of people, or a robust economy but also for only some elite. But so we are working on this. We are working on the gaps to fill in the gaps as much as possible in order to achieve this green square. And sometimes we have initiatives and we launch them after on, because it's not our role, or it's not in our capacity not to do anything but to launch it. And the latest thing was to put a guide for industrial investment, and then it was launched only, and this was the end of our role in it. Okay, these are a set of points that I want to speak about quickly. Why we are focused on laws particularly, and I'll be talking to you about this. We have economic researcher here whose name is Yasmine, and Yasmine will be talking to you about the international consumer protection guidance, and so we'll be saying what we agree to, what we don't agree to. She will be also talking to us about the international experiences. We'll be speaking about the kind of the weak points and strength points, and then we'll be seeing what's the important question. Why we are focused on these laws? In fact, we look at the consumer protection as if it is only relevant to the consumer, but in fact they are all interconnected, strongly interconnected. So when we're speaking about the local component in governmental contracts, this is really very, very important, and because this is relevant to the quality of the product itself and how to have it respected like in other countries. And this, at the end of the day, connected to the protection of the consumer, because at the end of the day, you are providing the consumer along with this with a high quality product. And these are all connected to the intellectual property protection, because if it's IP protected, it's not to be counterfeited. And if there is any counterfeiting of it, people will be held accountable for that. But we don't have this. So these pieces of legislation are all interconnected, and mainly they are relevant to the informal sector, largely, in fact. So if we are able to deal with these dimensions, we would be able to have very positive and strong interventions in order to improve the situation of the informal sector. And I don't think that this is the approach that the state is doing, and there are specific connections that if we pay attention to, we know that we can solve issues by the different interconnected effects. So the objective today is to analyze this workshop and or seminar, and other two seminars in fact will be focusing on the analysis of laws, because these laws are really vital and important, but they are not so much effectuated. It is really important, it's really critical, it's a top of the agenda of any country, like for example to have a consumer protection. It's about the local. In the United States there was something by American and made in USA. These are such a local product, and here it's not local product protected in undue failing manner like what we have in the past. We're speaking about competitive quality product which is given its special kind of treatment so that you will be able to protect it. So the objective here is to identify down to earth solutions in order to solve the problems of enforcement. Our problems are not in the text and provisions of the law, rather it's in the problem in the enforcement. And so we need to ask ourselves what we can do in order to solve this problem. We will start with consumer protection. Also, part and parcel of the importance of the seminar of today, it is the commercial fraud. And in fact, this has been like triggering or driving our work of today, because so many people were complaining about the problem of commercial counterfeiting, and the investors are not attracted to come. They do not have the appetite to come, and they are losing customers, as I said. This causes problems. Also, the engineering companies, in fact, sometimes there are no service centers, because sometimes you have a very important name in, for example, my problem, like Zanussi, for example, in that advertisement. My problem is that it's an advertisement. The problem is that if I call 140, 140 is the state-run number, the state-run regulator of the numbers, or the body that provides you the exact numbers. They give you a number of such kind of fraud. They give you the fraudulent people are even penetrating into this. So this is something that's really, really serious. It causes problems to the reputation of Egypt. We had problems in exports, and all these are relevant to the problem of consumer protection. Also, international standards for the consumer protection and to what extent Egypt is complying, or in how many ways. Yasmine is the one who will be speaking about this. UNCTAD has guidelines. They are almost, or they are 10 for policies on how to develop policies for consumer protection, including the national policies and also the safety, the physical safety, and also the different protection, the economic interests of the consumers, and the safety and quality measures, and the programs for education and media, and promoting the sustainable consumption and the e-commerce and the financial services. We tried to have the articles of the new and old law in a sequence based on the UNCTAD guidelines in this way that you see. And based on the international experiences, we have the European Commission who had the European consumer centers. It's there all over the European Union, in total 30, in addition to Norway and Iceland. And in fact, these centers are mainly to provide consultancy services for free to the consumers, and to work on the cross-border consumption-related disputes, and also in addition to this, it works as a focal point to the different consumers so that they would be able to get information about the services in other countries that are also members in the EU. With regard to the NGOs and the work of the civil society, India has a very good example. They had the Hamirpur Consumer Protection Organization, HCPO. It was established in 1991 under the law for the protection of consumers. It's working on awareness in rural and urban areas, and it works on raising the awareness of the consumers of their rights and try to solve its problems, or at least escalate it to a higher level so that will be discussed. On average, it is organizing from 10 to 22 campaigns for awareness per year, and particularly for schools. And UNCTAD, in fact, had this because we need to raise the awareness to be part of the activities in schools and in the curricula as well, so that children and students would know what are their rights as consumers. And in fact, the HCPO, they have monthly meetings in order to discuss the problems relevant to the consumers, and and they provide opportunity to anyone to participate and to speak about their complaints in relation to the consumers. And it has a tangible role for solving the problem of consumers. And in their 2011, 2012, they had escalated and solved around 26 issues that are pertaining to consumers, and 6 of these were in relation to legal help, and the 20 were relevant to create mutual communication and mutual understanding. Also, amongst the good things that the strengths of the new law is that for the first time they mentioned the Egyptian standard specifications and standards, and if the national specifications are missing, they deal based on the international standards. And also what's mentioned in the new law is that, and what's stipulated is that the price shall be inclusive of the taxes. So it's not only the price and then tell me that there is another tax to be added. It needs to be all-inclusive price. Also, they had the law stipulates also the prohibition of seizing and keeping the products to be traded in for the purpose of increasing its price later on. And also there is a piece, one article also in relation to introducing or offering lands for real estate development unless all legal procedures are duly taken or undertaken. And also the providers and suppliers need to provide service centers for all products they provide, in addition to a whole chapter about e-commerce in this new piece of legislation. And also, the ceiling of the financial penalties is raised to 2 million, and the main concepts of the law are now much more comprehensive, much more precise. What are the weaknesses of this new law? We would be speaking about this. She's speaking. She likes to speak about strengths, but my role in life is always to speak about the weak parts. So I'm always like protective and speaking about the protection of everyone. So, okay, these are with regard to the main aspects that are there of the framework for the protection of the consumer. Have some things that are missing. In fact, you need governance. You cannot work without governance because, and you need to avoid conflict of interests, because if people have interests, everything would be ruined. Also, the body that's responsible and the authority that's responsible for consumer protection, it needs to have powers in order to work on this, and you need the law and its executive legislation, and you need to have ability to deal with other apparatus of the state and other bodies, else it will be a vicious circle. And we always in fact do this in the problem. Even when we worked on the single window or the single you will find that it is as if it's the dining room, while a good dining room, while very very bad kitchen. So if we look at the numbers, we would find that we have several problems. For example, it is supposed to be under the cabinet. The authority for the consumer protection, it's under the cabinet, but in fact, it is under the ministry. Those who are responsible for the ministry for supplies. So this is a big problem, because who will be holding this ministry accountable if they have a problem? Because already they have so many things they do in relation to the consumers. So if they are mistaken and they need to be held accountable, it is to be the Consumer Protection Authority, while the Consumer Protection Authority is under the supervision of the ministry itself. So how it would work? There is a conflict of interest. But in fact, the Ministry of Supplies was always importing through different merchants. They were having the mediation of merchants in order to buy the supplies for food rations that are being provided by the state to people. This is stopped for some time and returned back. So it's a governance issue here. And another problem is that this Consumer Protection Authority has problems that are even to all ministries. It's a cross-cutting. But because it's under one ministry, what would make other ministries to be like attentive to what's being said by this council or by this authority? This is a weakness. Another weakness in the law is that there are no clear-cut provisions stipulating for stipulating the role of the CSOs or NGOs. There is no country in the world depending only on the Consumer Protection Authority, period. Because and that's why we have purposefully spoken about India, because it is a country that's similar to us in many aspects. You need the civil society to be part and parcel of the process. Also, there are no clear-cut provisions in relation to or that are specifying the type of relationship between this authority and other authorities that are relevant. So if you have a problem that's not under the Consumer Protection Authority, where to go? People do not know where to go, and in order to solve this, there is a need coordination. For maybe, for example, if it's real estate issue, you need the Ministry of Housing to be part and parcel of the process, because sometimes it may be some aspect that's relevant to industry as well. You need such a kind of striking such kind of a relationship between the consumer protection and other authorities, or maybe having some mechanism, internal mechanism to make it deal with different aspects. Also, the communication issue is not stipulated for in this piece of legislation, and the cyber crime piece of legislation, it's not enough, and you find and it's not effective, and so the consumer in fact is here really facing a problem, and there is no there are no provisions to deal with it. Also, many of the details are referred to the executive regulation of the law, and this is a problem. In fact, the law is issued by the cabinet with very clear-cut provisions, but the executive regulation may make the law devoid from its kind of essence or the purpose for which it's working. So it may, if you remember, Abdel Fattah al-Usri, in I was saying, he said it starts a snake, ends a like a more mysterious kind of snakes or cobra. So and the other thing, and in fact, we have another problem, which is that, and one of the reasons in the Constitution, when we were having the Constitution, if you remember, there were articles that we were speaking in very tiny details, and people were saying, this is too much details, how this would be an article in the Constitution. We had the details purposefully, so that everything will not be open to multiple interpretations when we are going down the hierarchy of the legal kind of texts with the law or afterwards the regulations, because previous experiences makes us learn that the devil comes in details. So if you have sometimes the regulation, the executive regulation causes harm to the law itself. There are problems that are relevant to the authority itself. Information, without having spreading information and access to information, how this authority would be able to have, we don't have enough information centers, so the availability of information is something that would be really good for regulating the internal trade sector in Egypt, because if the merchants are really exploitive and abusive when it comes to how they deal with the consumers, if I know that it's for 100 pounds, but the computer tells me that it's bought for £5 elsewhere, it would mean that the 100, there's some mistake about it. So information gives you the opportunity to regulate and for the consumer to know. Also, the standards, some of the standards are missing. We have two experts in automotives here, for example. There are 10 standards applicable to the locally manufactured automotives. But the nice thing that it's not applicable to the imported vehicles. So locally you have standards that are applicable to you as a local manufacturer, while imported vehicles, the same thing is not applied. Also, governance. This is a problem I already said. Also, the contents of the authority itself and its capacity to deal with this. It has wider powers. With the it's short-handed. We are speaking about the number of branches. It's very little number of branches. Its ability to deal daily. It already has a system, but it's not enough. So it's a step on the road, but people are still learning the process. So the capacities of the authority itself, if it's not full-fledged, this would be a problem. Also, the law, as we said, the law is far more better than the law it has abolished or overruled. However, the problem is in that somebody's saying something. Unfortunately, Councillor Hisham is saying it's really good law, of course, because he was involved in this. And that's why we are speaking about compliance with the international standards, because all the things that we respect internationally are here, but we know we need it to be enforced. In fact, it was approved or passed in September 2018, and we're speaking about 5 months. So this will take some time, and still you are waiting the regulation that's to come from the Ministry of Supplies, so the ministry would put the regulation, while the ministry shall be subject to this regulation. So this is a real conflict of interest here. Also, how to deal with other authorities, relevant authorities. It's not just to talk to them, rather it's some institutionalized way that if we impose a punishment, the punishment needs to be enforced by relevant bodies that are relevant to enforcing or that are working on this. Even in the new corporate registry, still we have this problem. The civil protection, you still have problem. Everybody is making increasing things, but the connections are missing. The civil society is still missing. If the civil society won't be there for the consumer protection, where they would be? If NGOs are not working for the protection of consumers, what else they need to work on? They, in fact, because consumer protection, you have sanitation, you have real estate, you have everything, because you may provide people with some sanitation connections while it is really, really poor in its quality and its conditions. Here comes consumer protection. So whenever you have consumer, you need to have the civil society and NGOs playing a role. So the question that we raise now is how to overcome all these problems in a down to earth practical manner. So we are not here just to display problems or speak about problems. What we want to say is to demonstrate what are the solutions and what are the grounds for these problems so that we can handle them and we can overcome them.